Hi, everyone. Sheila Blackadder. I'm here with Darrel Ray. He is the founder and chairman of the board of directors for Recovering from Religion. Been a psychologist. He's written 4 different books. I guess I'll go ahead and pass it over to you now and give you a couple minutes to talk about whatever you want.
So what are we're talking about whatever I want to talk about?
Sure.
Wow. Well, you've opened a real can of worms here. You know, I like to talk about sex, obviously, and God viruses and religion and all that. So,
well, by all means, just dip your pen in whatever inkwell you feel like talking about today.
Okay, I wasn't planning on dipping my pen in anything, but okay. We could get bad, couldn't we? I mean, this could be okay. I got to be careful, I think. But 4-letter words are okay, right?
Yep,
yes.
They are. That's fine.
All right, excellent. All right. Well, whatever. I'm thrilled to be on here, and I'm really glad to see you guys doing this again this year, and glad to see you're meeting your goal. But I think we should blow that darn goal away. Actually, I got to confess, when I saw that you set a goal of 2,000, I said, wait a minute, that's way too low. You need to be way above that.
Yeah.
So you would agree with that, I'm sure. So
absolutely.
Let's get people to get some donations in here, because this is an amazing cause. I love these guys. I love Doctors Without Borders. I love the Engineers Without Borders. I think both are non-religious, and that's what we're after. So,
sorry, Darrel. I can't remember. Are you involved with the Foundation Beyond Belief? Just out of curiosity.
No.
Right.
We support them, of course,
okay.
and we cooperate with them, but no, we're not directly involved with them. We are mostly Recovering from Religion is a totally separate organization. But Dale McGowan is, dear friend of mine, and we work together on different things. Nate Phelps is on our. I didn't know if you knew that. Nate Phelps of Westboro Baptist Church, ex-Baptist Church.
Right.
Fame. So he's on our board of directors, and we have some cool people on our board, and some of those overlap with Foundation Beyond Belief. I think Nate does a little with them. I can't remember. Anyway, Recovery from Religion. Our purpose is to help people leave religion, help people deal with the trauma of leaving religion. Our motto is there are thousands of groups that'll help you out of religion. We're the only one that will help. There's thousands of groups to help you into religion. We're the only one that will help you out of religion. So, and we've now got groups all over the world. Literally, we've got groups in the UK. I think we've got 2 or 3 groups down the UK.
Right,
I don't know that we have any in Scotland, but we've got them in England, and got them in Canada. And we got them in Australia. We've even got some underground groups. I believe it's in Pakistan and India, because you get your head cut off there if you leave religion.
Yeah.
But you gotta be real careful.
Yeah, like I was going to say.
But anyway, I started.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say there, like with regards to Scotland, my hometown could probably use some of your guys, because I grew up in the Bible Belt of Scotland, the islands there, and that's a hardcore Presbyterian area. And
oh yeah, right.
Yeah, like I explained to everyone else earlier, it's stuff like you don't put your laundry out on a Sunday and all that. That's frowned upon. It's a taboo there. And yeah, it's like it was bizarre. Like when I left for university to go to Glasgow, it was knowing that I could just go out to a shop and buy a newspaper, do my laundry, wash a car, and all that. And that was just a massive, like a revelation almost. Like I said, I wasn't a strong believer,
wow.
But like those traditions, they get ingrained into you, and I was ingrained when I went to. And then it took me a while just to get used to doing what I felt like on a Sunday. Just not closing the doors and hoping no one sees you.
So what did you guys do on Sunday? Just church and
yeah,
it
was church. There's like a funny story about my grandmother. Well, she couldn't really walk in her later days, but she would sometimes come over to the house on a Sunday, and the church finished about 5 o'clock. And one day at 5 o'clock, we said, "Oh, do you want us to take you back over the road?" They said, "No." I said, "Why not? The people come from church might see me. I don't want them to do that." Just, what is it? What are they going to do? Well, they see, and she was just like, you just didn't go outside the house when people were going or coming from church. And I just couldn't figure it out. Why? These are just our neighbours. They know what we do on a Sunday, but for some reason when they go to church, they shouldn't see anyone else. It's just bizarre traditions like that. So.
Wow. So, wow, that's crazy.
When I was growing up, we were in church 2 times every Sunday. We'd go to church in the morning, and then we'd go back for youth group and evening church. Sometimes there'd even be a third thing on Sundays. It was a full day.
Yeah.
But you didn't do anything secular on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'd have other services 2 and 3 times a week. We'd be in church. It was bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's something to recover from. And, if somebody in your home area is interested, all they have to do is contact us. We've got all sorts of help. We got packages. We got information to help you start a group in how to recover from religion.
I'll probably speak to some of the people I know back in the islands because I live well away. I'm in Aberdeen now, so and Aberdeen's it's complete.
Right.
Aberdeen's one of the most secular cities in Scotland, I think. So. Oh, sorry.
Right. I have memories. Been there once.
Yes.
And went up Edinburgh and just really enjoyed Inverness and Edinburgh mainly, but and I have photographs to prove it.
Yeah, like I say,
look, he was laughing at me.
But I say, if you consider with the islands, that's kind of the real stronghold. Like the Inverness, I would say, is the edge of the grip of the Bible Belt there. That's kind of where it just starts to fade away a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, Darrel, back on topic for you.
That's interesting. So, yeah, right. So anyway, that's what Recovering from Religion does. Sarah Moorhead's our executive director, and we just got a challenge grant for our organization from 2 philanthropies to provide packets for all the college students in Secular Student Alliance here in the United States. So we're going to be giving every leader of the Secular Student Alliance in the United States, if they want them, we'll be giving them a starter pack so they can go back to the university this fall and start a Recovering from Religion on campus. Wow. So we're booming from just the communities into the campuses. I don't know if you got in Scotland, but here in the United States we've got Campus Crusade for Christ. They call it Cru now. But the minute you walk onto a campus, somebody's trying to recruit you into their religious craziness, and there's nobody there to recruit you or help you understand there's options. And that's what we're trying to do, was get on United States campuses and give people an option to ask questions. We're not trying to convert them to anything like, you need to become an atheist or a skeptic or agnostic. We don't do that. We just say, here's a meeting you can come to talk, and nobody's going to judge you. If you want to talk about God, talk about God. We don't care.
Okay.
But no recruiting, no proselytizing. We don't allow proselytizing in these groups.
We do have someone in the chat room saying, what are you willing to do as a donation incentive for us? So
here's the deal. I'm willing to match. I think I budgeted $50 for this, so I'll match up to $50. But here's the deal. I want people to give $1. I want people to donate $1, not a whole lot, but $1 for every time they've masturbated this week. I think one each is, if you masturbated 5 times, that'd be $5.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you masturbate 25 times, that'd be $25. But that's not unreasonable, would you say?
No, not at all.
No, I would not say that is unreasonable at all. It'll be interesting over the next hour to see who donates how much.
All right. Well, and please tell me when you send them the money or when you pledge or whatever, I masturbated 7 times this week. Here's your $7. Just let me know. So, and I'm matching that up to $50 here for me right now. How's that? That work?
That sounds great. Got a few people in the chat room saying they don't have that much money lying about. That was the immediate response to you.
Okay. Now wait a minute.
Yeah, I think they're just...
those Catholics and everything for Lent, they stopped doing things like that. Of course, the Catholics aren't supposed to be masturbating anyway, but they stopped having sex or masturbating or eating chocolate or something like that. I'm just doing the opposite. Said every time you've done it, just give us $1. I think that's reasonable. So
Yep. So
Have fun. In fact, if you're doing it while you're watching this show, then pay us $2.
Because that's a lot of skill, because you're typing and doing it at the same time. So.
Right.
Well, if you've even done it once during the 24 hours this show's on, then you should pay us $2. I think that's a good thing. It's a challenge. That's what we're after, a challenge, right?
There you go, everyone. Okay, go ahead.
Nice.
Oh, Sheila, you're frozen. Sheila?
What did you say, Sheila?
I said that.
Oh, you're breaking up, Sheila.
Did we lose Sheila?
Can you hear?
Yeah, Sheila.
You're frozen, Sheila.
I'm going to shut my camera
Yeah, I
off.
think shut off because your webcam's coming through quite badly.
Okay, I'm still here, though.
Yeah, that's much better now.
All right.
Okay, sweet. And we got somebody out there that's going to start now, just so that he can give $2.
Yeah, he's already started, so.
All right. Well, you've never had a challenge like that on this show. I'm positive of that. So we'll start a new tradition. How's that?
Sounds excellent. All right.
So I did have a couple things I think are interesting to talk about. I think your audience might be interested in, but don't know if you had any agenda items or not.
No.
Not specifically. I was just going to ask you, what is the people that come to you for help, is there generally one religion that they seem to be coming from over any other? Like, are you getting more Christians, or, is there, who usually comes for help?
Of course, we do get a lot of Christians because we're based in the United States, but within that, of course, there's a wide range of people. We get a lot of former megachurch evangelical types of people coming to us. I'd say, now, it's hard to know because we don't have good statistics on all this, and people don't necessarily tell us. We don't ask them to report this.
Right.
We try to stay low-key. We don't ask people to tell us a lot about their private life or anything.
Right.
But my observation is the evangelical churches are bleeding people, and the evangelical church in the United States really peaked about 2010, 2012, and they've been going down a little bit. Well, where are those members going? Some of them are coming to us. In fact, my research shows that of the people leaving religion, by far the most people leaving religion are evangelicals. The conservative, fundamentalist, evangelical Christians in the United States are leaving in droves.
I think that's a great sign.
Yeah, in fact, in our research, and our research isn't definitive, the final word on it, but our research that we did 2 years ago shows that evangelicals are overrepresented among atheists, almost 3 times their number in the normal population. The megachurch evangelical group should be about 8%, but they're showing up close to 20+% in our research. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, if you think about it, people probably are born, maybe they're born in Methodist or more Presbyterian, something, moderate, and they move into something. They're searching, so they move into a Baptist church, and they find the Baptists aren't quite what they want, so they move into evangelicals. And what they do is they just move from one crazy to a little crazier to a little crazier. Well, when you get to the end of crazy, where do you go after that? There's nowhere to go. And so you realize it's all crazy. None of these religions have anything to offer you except grief and take 10% of your money. And so they leave, and they become secularists, and many of them are coming to the atheist movement. I mean, you see a lot of interesting stuff going on, and people like blogs and stuff, and problems of being raised in an evangelical home or trying to be an evangelical. I mean, you can't. There's so many restrictions in that lifestyle. People can get on the internet and figure out, well, there's nothing wrong with having sex before marriage. Why are you told I can't? I'm going to hell if I have sex before marriage. Or,
do you think they're angrier because they're getting screwed financially at the same time? Maybe fuels a bit of their fire.
that's not something I've heard a lot. It's not the financial part that I hear a lot about. It's the lifestyle demands that these religions make on people, and that no matter what you do, it's never good enough.
Right.
And then the other side of the coin is the number of people that say, okay, I tried not to masturbate. I didn't have sex before marriage. You know, I didn't think impure thoughts. And the preacher that I went to church with and listened to preach every Sunday had an affair.
Right.
Or now that preacher's getting divorced, and he's told me for 15 years divorce is a sin. So what people are seeing is, you know, it's a simple piece of logic here. If the top leaders of this movement cannot abide by the rules they're enforcing on everybody else, then how can they possibly expect their followers to abide by those rules? It's like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Right.
And the Baptist minister that can't keep his pants zipped up, and yet he says everybody else should, is not only a hypocrite, but he's causing people a lot of pain because they're following a bad example. And my information and my research shows that there's a hell of a lot of ministers out there screwing a lot of people they shouldn't be screwing. And they hide it. They hide it very well. I dare say the majority of fundamentalists or ministers of any kind, doesn't even have to be fundamentalists, Protestant ministers are having sex when they shouldn't be having sex. And, you know, that doesn't even include masturbation, which some churches think is wrong. Other churches are kind of wishy-washy about. You know, the Mormons say you shouldn't be masturbating, so it tells me they're all screwed up. Mitt Romney doesn't masturbate? Uh-huh.
Well,
you know.
So I just want to chirp in there. We've had $42 just come in. That's a $2 donation and a $40 donation. So whatever's going on with the $40 donation.
$2 and a $40.
Yeah.
Okay, well, $40, that might be for the last week. Congratulations, fellas. You may have just broken a world record. Of course, it could be a woman. Women can masturbate a lot more and come a lot more than men, so I have to be careful. It could be somebody that's does not own a penis, that's for sure. So, well, you know, and I'm an equal opportunity person. I don't care who you are. Just tell me how many times you masturbate and give us a buck. $40 and $2. Okay. Well, the $2 tells me somebody's been checking off right now as we're talking. Right? And then the other 40 means somebody over a whole. I don't think anybody's done 40 worth in the time we've been talking, or in the last 7 or 8 hours. So, all right. Do I have a one-track mind?
I don't know that it's any different than anybody else. Just you're more vocal about it than some.
Yeah, so one of the things I had this really interesting inquiry, let's say, from a journalist, which tripped my trigger on something. I learned from this, they were doing some investigative journalism about boys' homes in Utah. And these are homes that are ostensibly secular, and people from all over the United States, and I guess even internationally, will send their 13, 14, 15-year-old boys to these homes because they think their boys are addicted to sex or addicted to porn. That raised a red flag for me. I think, okay, what's going on here? So I started doing my own investigation and talk to this journalist, but I don't know when or if this article is going to get published. I'm not saying anything about the journalist because I don't know anything about the journalist, and I haven't seen an article from them yet either. But in my own research, I started realizing something I had never seen or didn't realize. There's Mormon business people in Utah running three different schools for supposed boys with sex problems, sex addictions, sex compulsions, whatever. They call themselves secular, even though they are owned by Mormon people. And there's just something wrong. Something smells fishy in Denmark here. Well, in this case, in Utah. And I started looking at their websites and investigating to help understand why this is so concerning. Is that in psychology, I'm a psychologist, we have a book called the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The new one just came out this year, number 5. In Europe, they have the ICD, which is equivalent. It's classifications of diagnoses. Well, within those two diagnostic manuals, there is no, and I want to repeat this to your audience, there is no diagnosis for sex addiction or porn addiction. There's no diagnosis. So if you went to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, legitimate psychologist or psychiatrist, they could not diagnose you with either one of those conditions because they don't exist in the diagnostic manual, and there's no definition for it. In fact, people have been working for 30 years on how to define sex addiction, and they haven't been able to do it scientifically. They haven't been able to find a way to put that together in a way that makes sense. So knowing that, I looked at these websites, and I find that they've got all sorts of, we treat boys with sex addiction. I look at these people's qualification. They're all qualified as sex addiction counselors. Now that is interesting. Daniel, how do you diagnose somebody with sex addiction and then treat them? More or less, how do you get trained in sex addiction counseling? And where did they get trained? I looked at where they got their training. Now, this will be a big shock to everybody listening, but they got, don't laugh too soon here, Sheila. They got Brigham Young University. Brigham Young, for those of you in the UK and Scotland, that's the Mormon equivalent of the Vatican University. I mean, that's, before you can go to Brigham Young University, you have to sign that document that says you will not have sex before marriage. Plus, all Mormons are expected not to be masturbating. Can you imagine an entire university of men and women that aren't masturbating or having sex before marriage?
No.
I mean, that's formulating. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just crazy. And I'm thinking that probably drives people crazy. That's probably why some Mormons act the way they do. It's pretty interesting. So they're running schools that are treating boys for something that's non-existent, and people are paying tens of thousands of dollars to send their children to these boys camps or boys schools. I mean, they're like they're nice. They got a lot of amenities. They got horseback riding and all that, but they teach boys things like porn is wrong. They teach things like masturbation. You shouldn't be masturbating, and that sex before marriage is wrong. And so you got 13, 14-year-old boys being subjected to this. Now, there's no girls there. It's just for boys. Because boys evidently are the only people with sexual compulsions or sexual addictions. Right. So
Right.
that's one of my pet peeves right now. And one of the problems I'm finding in our community is when I mention, like when I give talks or when I mention on podcasts like this, that there's no such thing as sex addiction, you will be surprised at how vociferous, how angry people get at me for claiming there's no sex addiction. And and they'll come back to me and says, well, I'm a sex addict, or I used to be a sex addict, or my husband's a sex addict or a porn addict. And it's all interesting. I say, well, which psychiatrist or psychologist went through the criteria for a diagnosis and made that diagnosis? And in almost every case, they say, well, I just know it. All right, I'm a psychologist. I can't, trying to diagnose depression, for example, is, it's sophisticated. You got to know something. You got to watch, observe, listen, try and understand if the person you're talking to is depressed. You don't just do it because I feel like it's right. Well, that's what these people are doing. And most of the people I know who say they're a sex addict, or we're a sex addict, or their husband's a sex addict, or their wife's a sex addict, it's them doing the diagnosis. There's no qualified person doing the diagnosis. So atheists in the atheist community are biting this hook, line, and sinker. They are swallowing this addiction scenario, hook, line, and sinker, when there's no such thing, and it's damaging. I mean, telling a 13-year-old boy you are a sex addict, a 13-year-old boy has never experienced sex in his whole life except to masturbate, and what 13-year-old boy isn't masturbating like a fiend? I was masturbating like a fiend. My mom caught me one time. Golly, that was embarrassing. She came in and said, And I was just embarrassed as hell. And she sat down. She was very calm. My mom was a cool gal in many ways. She said, "That's all right. Don't worry about it. You can do it now, but you won't do it when you get married." Okay. She blew it on that one. But that was pretty forward thinking for a fundamentalist woman at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm really irritated that we in the atheist community are not any more skeptical about things like porn addiction and sex addiction. Now, I am not saying that there aren't people that have problems that involve sex or problems that involve porn. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is you can't diagnose that as an addiction. There's more to it than that. There's something usually underneath the surface. For example, they may depressed. One of the ways to deal with depression is masturbation. If you've got a child, a 13, 14-year-old child that's got attachment problems, one of the ways to deal with the anxiety around attachment is masturbation. So it's not an addiction to sex or porn. It's how do I deal with these emotional problems that are underlying all that. That's is it okay to talk about? Is this
No, you're
stuff
good.
you want to hear?
It's fine. Whatever.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Darrel, can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I've lost. Yeah, I can hear you.
Cal stepped out for a couple minutes, but it's good as long as you can still hear me.
Oh, okay. I've lost him. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Can't see it. Can't see you though. Oh, that's all right.
That's all right. You can look at my Ivy girl.
Yeah. So there's a lot of problems with this stuff around human sexuality and buying into the cultural shit, because this notion of sex addiction really plays into the religious notions about sex. You know, when you scratch the surface, you got 12-step sex addiction programs, and they look exactly like Alcoholics Anonymous, and they've got a lot of God stuff in them. You know, if you don't have God, you can't get over this. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as sex addiction, and second, you're putting God into it. It looks a whole lot like a religion. Yeah. Religion really benefits from this whole addiction model, because what they're really telling you is you can't do it alone. You got to go back to God to get rid of this. When the research on addiction, even addiction like cocaine addiction or alcohol addiction, even that research shows that the vast majority of the people who are addicted at one point in their life lose their addiction later in life with no treatment whatsoever. There's a lot of ex-alcoholics walking the planet that never attended a single AA meeting.
Right.
There's a lot of ex-drug addicts that never attended a drug addiction meeting.
Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah, narcotics, and there's no evidence, absolutely no evidence whatsoever that things like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous work. There's no scientific evidence whatsoever that they work.
No,
There's a lot of it.
It's mostly a question of willpower, and for a lot of people that are successful in the AA or NA, it's just they needed something to help push them through it. I mean, there's a much larger number of people that go through AA and NA and fail miserably, and it's because they're forced to do it. There is no addict anywhere of anything that's going to come clean because they were court ordered to do so. They have to be ready to give up whatever their addiction is. So it's
right. Yeah. So I just don't want us in the secular community buying into this stuff. I think we should be calling people on these notions about addiction, sex addiction, porn addiction, whatever, and starting to get realistic, because there are problems. Like I said earlier, people do have problems that might include sex or porn, but that's not the underlying problem. We should be treating the depression, for example, or the obsession disorder, not pushing the sex line. I have a case study I give people. I say, okay, here's a guy who is constantly going to his computer secretly to look. And it's a guy that's got a lot of bookmarks on his computer, and he's got an iPad it's full of stuff, and he's always looking at that. And his wife finally blew up the other day when he stepped out of his child's birthday party to check his iPhone. What's going on with this guy? And when I ask people, what do you suspect is going on? Virtually everybody says, he's looking at porn. Something's going on. And then I reveal to them, no, he's a stock market trader. Is he addicted to stock trading? Why are we pathologizing sex when exactly the same behavior? This guy is looking at his computer constantly, even when he should have been doing other things. Right. And he's stepping outside of his own child's birthday. Why isn't that pathological? But people don't see that. Or I have another example of a 15-year-old boy who's constantly on his computer, constantly on his iPhone. And, I go through the same descriptions of you can't distract him, and he's always secretive about it. What's going on there? And a lot of people will say, he's looking at porn. No, he's playing games against friends of his online. Right. And he's spending just as much time, quote, non-productive time, as any porn addict. And yet nobody pathologizes the game playing or the stock market trading. When you contrast that, people start realizing it's very difficult to understand what an addiction really is. It's very difficult to define it. So let's stop calling people addicts that are amateurs. It's hard to define. It's also hard to. Why are we labeling people something that doesn't exist? That's kind of my point.
Right. Well, and I think it's just so, especially with something like sex, everybody's got a hang up about sex. Not every individual person, but groups as a whole. It's just, it's even now. It's, we're talking about gay marriage is coming up a lot. Especially in the States here, we're getting more and more states that are legalizing gay marriage or making it official. I guess it's not that it's illegal now. But at the base of everything, there's an issue with sex at the root of it. And I think we just drop this Puritan attitude that all sex is evil, no matter what, and just move on and try and figure out what's underneath all that.
Yeah, that's true. Every time you label somebody, especially children, I think that is so dangerous to label children anything. Because once you tell a child, you are X, Y, or Z, you run the risk of them taking you seriously and believing you. And that's crazy, because you don't want a kid going through his whole life thinking he's something that he was diagnosed when he was 13. People outgrow and change. That's not
absurd.
Only
that, but you create sexual issues with him later. I mean, you tell him now that he's going to go to hell because he's masturbating, or he shouldn't have sex outside of marriage, or he's going to burn. Then he's going to look at sex like it's some kind of a bad thing, or he's going to have all sorts of repressed sexual issues later on. You're making an unhealthy adult.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what religion does to people. It creates that unhealthy approach or attitude towards sexuality. In our research, we found, and I've referred to this several times, but I want to just tip your audience off. If they're interested in seeing the research that we did, they can get it. Just go to ipcpress.com and download it. It's a free download. And when you download it, you'll find all sorts of interesting information. We asked 14,560 atheists about their sex lives. And nobody ever asked atheists about their sex lives. We found tons of interesting ideas, interesting responses. We got 4,000 pages worth of responses from people. They told us their life story sometimes. So here's the deal. It's a free download at ipcpress.com. But if you download it, donate $2 to our cause here, at least $2. It's actually worth $50, but donate something to us for having downloaded this valuable information you found about atheist sex lives. I mean, where else on the planet can you find out about atheist sex lives except right here, right now? We'll talk about atheist sex lives.
Maybe that's part of the problem, that atheists are so much more open about their sex lives than that it's somewhat threatening, or it freaks out, those who are so oppressive about it.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind of right. I think atheists generally are, on the whole, are more open about their sexuality, but I meet way too many uptight atheists. I meet too many atheists that the mention of the word orgasm or penis or masturbation makes them flush and they get embarrassed. And I'm not talking just adults. I'm talking about kids. So I started researching that. And what I found is there's a lot of Christian atheists out there. Let that sink in a minute. Christian atheists. And what I mean by that, they're atheists that haven't shed their Christian sexual ideas. They still are embarrassed to admit things like, you know, they had sex before marriage, or they're afraid to tell their children that they had 5 sex partners before they got married, or they're afraid to admit that they masturbate many times a week. Or, by the way, donate your $1 per masturbation. Get your dollars in here while because you only have an hour to get this masturbation finished.
Yeah.
And $2 if you do it while we're talking here. Remember that.
Yeah, and just to say...
Do you have something to say, Cal?
Yeah, it's just to let everyone know, another $8, and that's your Darrel's 50 target matched. And so Darrel will match that and throw it.
Oh.
So $8, so we're looking for someone who's either done it 8 times this week or done it 4 times in the past 50 minutes, so... So someone out there has been busy, so get busy with your hand in another way right now.
So we found all sorts of interesting things about atheists, that if they were from really, really oppressive religions like the Mormon religion or Jehovah's Witnesses or Seventh-day Adventists, that they felt immense relief around their sexuality once they left religion. But if they were like Episcopalians, or Presbyterians, and they left, they didn't experience nearly the relief in their sexual guilt. And we were looking at how much guilt did people experience in their during the time they were religious, maybe being raised in a religious home or whatever. And then we ask them, what's your current level of guilt around things, sexuality? And we ask a lot of very specific questions. And the general pattern was a huge difference in how guilty people felt. We actually thought people would feel there would be residual effects of guilt among atheists. And there were among a few, but most atheists have gotten rid of a lot of the guilt. But there's still people that are afraid to talk openly about their sexuality. There's people that are afraid to admit they're gay. There's people who are afraid to admit that they're polyamorous. There's people who are afraid to admit that they like swinging, or they're afraid to admit to their children that they had sex before marriage, or any number of different things. And it's because we're surrounded with this culture of sexual repression. We feel like we have to toe the Christian line. And I'm not saying, come out to your boss as poly. That would be stupid. I'm just saying, in the normal conversation with friends or relatives or something, it's almost like coming out an atheist. Yeah. Telling your parents you're an atheist is a big deal. Telling your parents you're poly might be a big deal. Or telling your parents, I think your church's ideas around masturbation are dumb, and I started masturbating shortly after I figured that out at the age of 15 or something. Being open and non-judgmental and nonchalant about it. Talking openly around issues like, intersex people, transsexual people, and being accepting and open and in public is something we atheists should be doing, because we don't have any problems with that, or we shouldn't have any problems with that.
I can only imagine it makes it harder living within a couple, having issues with sex. You're living an entire disappointing sex life because you're afraid to share with someone that you're supposed to trust and love what it is that you really want to do.
Well, that was something we researched rather deeply in our own report. And what we found was, if you're an atheist married to a Christian, to a religious person, if you're if we ask everybody, rate your spouse in religiosity. If you rated your spouse as a 7, 8, or a 9, up high in religiosity, then there was a 75% chance that your sex life was a 1, 2, or a 3.
Right.
In other words, you ain't getting much.
Right.
We got a lot of feedback from people in our research. One guy said, when I told my wife, this guy'd been married for 30 years or so. So when I told my wife, finally came out to her and said, I'm an atheist. She said, well, I can't go to bed with you anymore because I can't go to share my bed with somebody who doesn't share my faith. So, I mean, 30 years of marriage gets thrown out right there. Well, that's the downside. We had another kind of funny one. This 20-some, 25, 26-year-old guy wrote that I used to bet every girl, be able to bet every girl in the Sunday school class until I came out as an atheist, and now they won't talk to me. Isn't that interesting? They're Christians. They'll go to bed with you if you're a Christian, even though that's against their religion, but they won't bed with an atheist. We found that kind of thing, and we did find a lot of evidence that marriage to a religious person really enters sexual pleasure and really increases sexual interference. Now, here's the deal. If you're an atheist married to an Episcopalian, probably no big deal. If you're an atheist married to a cultural liberal Jew, probably no big deal. If you're an atheist married to a Jehovah's Witness, you aren't even going to bed together because their religion prohibits it, or an Amish. If you're an Amish person and you're married to an atheist or vice versa, it's not happening. So there's a lot of interference that religion has. And I've been a counselor, therapist off and on for most of my career. What I've observed about religion in marriages is, even if it's two religious people married to each other, there's always an interesting interference. It's almost like, let me get some. It's almost like you got, the husband and wife, and of course it's got to be a man and a woman, or it's not a true marriage, if you're Christian anyway. But so you got the husband and wife, but between the two is a wall. Goes between these two. And this wall is like a filter between them. This filter is the filter of Christian judgment. For example, I've had way too many people tell me something like, I caught my husband viewing pornography. Now I think I better divorce him. Or I caught my boyfriend, it's almost always the female catching the male, boyfriend watching pornography, I'm going to dump him. Well, okay, that's a pretty normal thing to watch pornography. Pretty normal thing to masturbate. It says nothing about your marriage because your husband's masturbating. It may say something about your relationship. And what happens is they can't talk about this. I can't talk to my husband about why he likes to masturbate to pornography because that's forbidden in my religion. Well, I know a lot of atheists. They're very uncomfortable with their spouses or with their mates, boyfriends, girlfriends looking at pornography. Now, let's be honest here. Shut your ears if you're below 18. If you are watching pornography, you're not watching pornography. You're masturbating to pornography. I have this whole problem with people saying, we use pornography. Well, hell yeah, you use it to masturbate. Let's be honest. Let's be open about it. But when you say I have to dump my boyfriend because he's watching pornography, that is a stupid Christian idea. It has nothing to do with his sexuality and his. If your sexual relationship is satisfactory and happy and you're able to talk about it, you're able to be adventurous and experiment, who cares if he watches pornography? Who cares if she watches pornography? Oh, by the way, did she read any erotic women's novels lately? Has she read any Harlequin novels lately? That's pornography. Did she read Shades of Grey? That's pornography. And I have had so many women say, well, Shades of Grey isn't porn. I said, wow. Yeah, it looks pretty pornographic to me. It's just in writing. Women like to read, men like to look. There's a difference, but there's still pornography. Golly, you guys are giving me a whole preaching. I can speak sermons here, Kim. Yeah. This is dangerous.
I was just going on the subject. How common do you come across the attitudes, well, especially amongst that you only have sex when you're going to have a kid? Like you want to have children and then they just don't bother the rest?
Well, I do see that a lot among religious. Of course, that's some religions actually preach that. The Catholic religion certainly does, and some other ones. I don't see it among atheists, but what I do see is this notion that when you get married, that you now have control of the other person's sexuality. And let's say that you're married, you're an atheist married or a secularist married to a religious person. Well, that religious person may have the belief that you only have sex for procreation, which really screws up the sex life of the other party. And what it says is his or her religion dictates the other party's behavior and sexuality and what they're allowed to do. And that's criminal. That is just stupid. I had a woman I worked with. They were pretty religious. She was more religious than him. They'd had 4 kids. She comes in and she sits down and she says, he's complaining I won't have sex with him. I told him, I've had 4 kids with you. I'm tired of sex. I'm not doing it anymore. Okay. I guess that's her choice. I mean, every human being has a right to control their own body. I have no problems with that. What I have problems with is, she said, and he can't have sex either because she caught him masturbating to some porn. That's why we were in the counseling section. She thought he was a porn addict. So I'm sitting here listening to her rave on about he's a porn addict. He wants to have sex all the time. Yeah, right. Okay, so I split them and I talked to him individually. And I listened to her rant and rave about how terrible he is to look at porn and how that degrades their marriage and undermines their Christian faith and all this sort of stuff. Then I bring him in and he says, I can't keep my hands off my wife. I love her. She's attractive. Yeah, I've had 4 kids, but I don't want to stop having sex for the rest of my life, and that's what she expects. And she's pissed off at me for watching porn. I'm not a porn addict. I just want sex. Look at this. She has diagnosed him as a porn addict. But he's saying, I would rather have sex with my wife and with the porn star on that video.
Right.
That's what he's and that. He loved his wife, but her religion got in the way. And that's what you see a lot. Ask men, you like porn? I like porn. Lots of men like porn. Lots of women like porn.
I like porn.
If you had to absolutely make a choice between not ever seeing porn again but being able to have all the sex you wanted with your wife, girlfriend, husband, whatever, which would you choose? If you could,
I would never allow
okay.
myself to be in a situation where it was either or. I would rather be.
I know, but most people would say, okay, if I can't ever have porn again, or I can only have porn, or I can only have my wife. Most people want the real thing.
Right.
Most people want the real thing. Now, I wouldn't either, Sheila. I like them both, and there's no reason to choose. But the fact remains, porn is a poor substitute for the real thing. But, the research shows that a masturbatory orgasm actually is more powerful than an intercourse orgasm. So many people feel like, gosh, the orgasm I got from jacking off to that porn last night was pretty darn fun. And that's okay because that's the way our bodies are built. Our bodies are built to masturbate because it keeps the juices flowing. And it's a good thing for both men and women. For men, it keeps the sperm fresh. Sperm are only good for 5 days, and then they start going senescent. And they're no good for fertilizing the egg. So if the man's not having regular intercourse, he better be masturbating if he's going to get somebody pregnant. On the other side, the more women masturbate, the more they lubricate, the quicker they respond to sexual stimulation, the more their own imagination is challenged by it. And women are much more sexually responsive if they are masturbating on a regular basis. I mean, the research shows both of these things. So it's a good thing to masturbate. There's nothing wrong with it.
I think women that masturbate would also be more open to experimentation. They're more in touch with who they are and what they like, so they're going to be more willing to experiment outside also.
I've had women come into me at 40 years of age and say, I like sex. It's not the best thing on the planet. I like it. It's okay. My husband wants more than I want. My problem is I've never had an orgasm in my life. I'm thinking, you're 40 years old and you've never had an orgasm in your life? So that's the first thought. The second question I ask is, how often do you masturbate?
Right.
And the answer is, oh, I couldn't masturbate. That's dirty. That's filthy. I couldn't touch myself down there. So they've gone 40 years without masturbating. Wow.
It's tragic.
It really is. And it's amazing. There are actually people out there, Sheila. You know it. You've probably talked to these people.
Oh, I know. It
So
always shocks me to know that there are people that are actually willing to not do that.
So I tell them, okay, how do you expect your husband to give you an orgasm if you can't give yourself an orgasm? And my talks, I tell people, you are the first sex partner you're ever going to have, and you're probably the last sex partner you're ever going to have. So get used to it and be a good sex partner of yourself, and that will make you a much better sex partner for other people as you go through life. Yeah. So it sounds like we're on the same page there, Sheila.
Yeah. Well, and
Great.
just for anybody who's watching, if you're not frequently masturbating, you should be doing so. Not only that, but it makes you physically feel better, and it's supposed to help cure a migraine.
Yeah. It does.
So
It's a
there you
very
go.
good cure. All sorts of things. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we have stimulated your thinking or other genitalia, get your dollars in here.
Yeah.
$2 at least per time you've done it while we're talking. $1 for every time you've done it this week. Thank you.
Just while you've been talking there, we got the $10, so that's your $50 target met, Darrel.
Right.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, people.
You're welcome. That's great. Well, let's not stop there. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
We
keep
could
going.
get another 10 or 15 bucks, I'm sure. There's at least that many people out there masturbating right now. Probably.
All right.
What's the value of a single orgasm? How much is one orgasm worth?
Ooh,
I suppose
I'm
that
thinking-
depends on how often you're masturbating. If you're I mean, the less frequently you do it, I suppose it's worth more. So if you had one really, really built up, then I would say, donate $10.
There you go. All right. Yeah, if you've only masturbated once this week, you ought to be giving us $10. Well, here's the other side of the question, because I'm only going to be on here for this hour. If you masturbate after this hour because of what we said here, then you should still donate another $2 to $10 for having been stimulated by our incredible conversation that we've had.
And I'm just going to say you're welcome right off the bat.
There you go.
All right, we're...
I would...
No, carry on, Darrel.
I did have... Oh, unless you had something, Cal, you need to put in there.
I was just going to say we're just coming up for 4 minutes left, so if you have got donations, get them in right now.
Yeah, right. There's a couple things I'd like to throw out there just to enlighten people about some resources. Obviously, I take a look at any of my books, Sex and God or the God Virus. But the thing that I started about 2.5 years ago is something called the Secular Therapist Project. And if you have people listening that need a good therapist in the U.S. mainly, we do have some in the U.K., we do have some in Canada and Australia, but most of them are in the United States. It's hard to find a good secular therapist. There's so many therapists that are spiritual and pseudo-religious and New Age and, not well-trained. Help people find secular therapists more easily. And I've had so many people say, my wife and I went to a marriage counselor and they tried to send us back to church. Or, I went to a counselor and they tried to realign my chakras or something like that. Well, so I started this site. It's called seculartherapy.org, seculartherapy.org. You can just register as a client. You can register anonymously. You can use a fake name. We don't care. And then by your zip code, your postal code, you can see who's close to you. If we have a therapist, right now we have, I believe, 178 therapists registered. And I guarantee every one of them is secular because there's 4 of us on my team. We're all atheists. We're all well-trained secular therapists. And we look at every application and we ask questions of these people. And we make them tell us about the way they practice before we vote. And pretty much all 4 of us has to agree this person is secular or we don't let them in the database. None of our therapists will send you back to church. Not one of them will say you ought to pray more or read your Bible. And I've heard so many therapists do that to people. So go to seculartherapy.org. If you're a therapist listening to this podcast right now, go register as a therapist, secular therapist, apply. Can't guarantee you'll get in, but apply. Tell us about your practice, because there are people out there who need you right now, and they can't find a good therapist. They can find a good Catholic counselor or Baptist counselor or Buddhist counselor. They can't find a good secular counselor. And we have over almost 4,000 clients in our database looking for therapists, and about 178 therapists in our database. It's like a Match.com or a dating site. We put clients together with therapists, and it's all safe. It's all anonymous. You know, just like Match.com, you don't tell anybody anything about yourself or reveal anything unless you want to. So that was one of my key things, Cal. Thanks for letting me talk about that.
No problem at all. And we are coming up to the last few minutes here. So a very big thank you to Darrel. It's been fantastic. Thanks very much for taking the time out.
Good to talk to you again, and thanks, Sheila, for arranging all this, and hope to talk to you again.
Yep.
Well, it was great. Thank you for agreeing to come on and talking masturbation. It's awesome.
There you go. All right. Take care, guys.
All right, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. So see you all.
For every time they've masturbated this week, I think one each is, well, if you masturbated 5 times, that'd be $5.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you masturbate 25 times, that'd be $25. But that's not unreasonable, would you say?
No, not at all.
No, I would not say that is unreasonable at all. It'll be interesting over the next hour to see who donates how much.
All right. Well, and please tell me when you send them the money or when you pledge or whatever, I masturbated 7 times this week. Here's your $7. Just let me know. So, and I'm matching that up to $50 here for me right now. How's that? That work?
That sounds great. Got a few people in the chat room saying they don't have that much money lying about. That was the immediate response to you.
Okay. Now wait a minute.
Yeah, I think they're doing.
Those Catholics and everything for Lent, they stopped doing things like that. Of course, the Catholics aren't supposed to be masturbating anyway, but they stopped having sex or masturbating or eating chocolate or something like that. I'm just doing the opposite. Said every time you've done it, just give us $1. I think that's reasonable. So
yep. So
have fun. In fact, if you're doing it while you're watching this show, then pay us $2.
Because that's a lot of skill. Because you're typing and doing it at the same time. So.
Right.
Well, if you've even done it once during the 24 hours this show's on, then you pay us $2. I think that's a good thing. It's a challenge. That's what we're after, a challenge, right?
There you go, everyone. Okay, go ahead.
Nice.
Oh, Sheila, you're frozen. Sheila?
What did you say, Sheila?
I said that.
Oh, you're breaking up, Sheila.
Did we lose Sheila?
Can you hear?
Yeah, Sheila.
You're frozen, Sheila. Is on our. I didn't know if you knew that. Our Nate Phelps of Westboro Baptist Church, ex-Baptist Church.
Right.
Fame. So he's on our board of directors, and we have some cool people on our board, and some of those overlap with Foundation Beyond Belief. I think Nate does a little with them. I can't remember. Anyway, Recovery from Religion. Our purpose is to help people leave religion, but help people deal with the trauma of leaving religion. Our motto is there are thousands of groups that'll help you out of religion. We're the only one that will help. There's thousands of groups that help you into religion. We're the only one that will help you out of religion. So, and we've now got groups all over the world. Literally, we've got groups in the UK. I think we've got 2 or 3 groups down the UK.
Oh, right,
I don't know that we have any in Scotland, but we've got them in England, and got them in Canada. We got them in Australia. We've even got some underground groups. I believe it's in Pakistan and India, because you get your head cut off there if you leave religion.
Yeah.
But you gotta be real careful.
Yeah, like I was going to say.
But anyway, I started.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say there, like with regards to Scotland, my hometown could probably use some of your guys, because I grew up in the Bible Belt of Scotland, the islands there, and that's a hardcore Presbyterian area. And
oh yeah, right.
yeah, we, like I said, like I explained to everyone else earlier, it's stuff like you don't put your laundry out on a Sunday and all that. That's frowned upon. It's a taboo there. And yeah, it's like, it was bizarre. Like when I left for university to go to Glasgow, it was knowing that I could just go out to a shop and buy a newspaper, do my laundry, wash a car, and all that. And that was just a massive, like a revelation almost. Like I said, I wasn't a strong believer,
Wow.
but like those traditions, they get ingrained into you, and I was ingrained when I went to. And then it took me a while just to get used to doing what I felt like on a Sunday. Just not closing the doors and hoping no one sees you.
So what did you guys do on Sunday? Just church and
yeah,
eat, and that's
it
pretty
was
much it?
church. There's like a funny story about my grandmother. Well, she couldn't really walk in her later days, but she would sometimes come over to the house on a Sunday, and the church like finished about 5 o'clock. And one day at 5 o'clock, we said, "Oh, do you want us to take you back over the road?" They said, "No." I said, "Why not? The people come from church might see me. I don't want them to do that." What is it? What are they going to do? Well, they see, and like she was just like, you just didn't go outside the house when people were going or coming from church, and I just couldn't figure it out. Why? These are just our neighbours. They know what we do on a Sunday, but for some reason, when they go to church, they shouldn't see anyone else. It's just bizarre traditions like that. So.
Wow, that's crazy.
When I was growing up, we were in church 2 times every Sunday. We'd go to church in the morning, and then we'd go back for youth group and evening church. Sometimes there'd even be a third thing on Sundays. It was a full day.
Yeah.
But you didn't do anything secular on Sunday. Yeah. And then, of course, we'd have other services 2 and 3 times a week. We'd be in church. It was bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's something to recover from. And, if somebody in your home area is interested, all they have to do is contact us. We've got all sorts of help. We got packages. We got information to help you start a group in how to recover from religion.
I'll probably speak to some of the people I know back in the islands, because I live well away. I'm in Aberdeen now, and Aberdeen's just
right.
Aberdeen's one of the most secular cities in Scotland, I think. So.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Right. I have memories. Been there once.
Yes.
And went up Edinburgh and just really enjoyed Inverness and Edinburgh mainly, but and I have photographs to prove it.
Yeah. Like I say, like
he was laughing at me.
Hi everyone, Sheila Blackadder. I'm here with Darrel Ray. He is the founder and chairman of the board of directors for Recovering from Religion. Been a psychologist. He's written 4 different books. I guess I'll go ahead and pass it over to you now and give you a couple of minutes to talk about whatever you want.
So what are we're talking about whatever I want to talk about?
Sure.
Wow. Oh, you've opened a real can of worms here. I like to talk about sex, obviously, and God viruses and religion and all that. So,
well, by all means, just dip your pen in whatever inkwell you feel like talking about today.
Okay, I wasn't planning on dipping my pen in anything, but okay. We could get bad, couldn't we? I mean, this could be okay. I got to be careful, I think. But 4-letter words are okay, right?
Yep,
yes.
They are. They're fine.
All right, excellent. All right. Well, whatever. I'm thrilled to be on here, and I'm really glad to see you guys doing this again this year, and glad to see you're meeting your goal. But I think we should blow that darn goal away. Actually, I got to confess, when I saw that you set a goal of 2,000, I said, wait a minute, that's way too low. You need to be way above that.
Yeah.
So you would agree with that, I'm sure. So
absolutely.
Let's get people to get some donations in here, because this is an amazing cause. I love these guys. I love Doctors Without Borders. I love the Engineers Without Borders. I think both are non-religious, and that's what we're after. So,
sorry, Darrel. I can't remember. Are you involved with the Foundation Beyond Belief? Just out of curiosity.
Oh no,
right.
we support them, of course,
okay.
and we cooperate with them, but no, we're not directly involved with them. We are mostly Recovering from Religion is a totally separate organization. But Dale McGowan is, dear friend of mine, and we work together on different things. Nate Felt.
But I say, if you consider like with the islands, that's kind of the real stronghold. Like the Inverness, I would say, is the edge of the grip of the Bible Belt there. That's kind of where it just starts to fade away a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, Darrel,
Okay.
back on topic for you.
That's interesting. So, yeah, right. So anyway, that's what Recovering from Religion does. Sarah Moorhead's our executive director, and we just got a challenge grant for our organization from two philanthropies to provide packets for all the college students in Secular Student Alliance here in the United States. So we're going to be giving every leader of the Secular Student Alliance in the United States, if they want them, we'll be giving them a starter pack so they can go back to the university this fall and start Recovering from Religion on campus.
Wow.
So we're booming from just the communities into the campuses. You know, I don't know if you got in Scotland, but here in the United States we've got Campus Crusade for Christ. They call it Crew now. But, you know, the minute you walk onto a campus, somebody's trying to recruit you into their religious craziness. And there's nobody there to recruit you or help you understand there's options. And that's what we're trying to do, was get on United States campuses and give people an option to ask questions. We're not trying to convert them to anything like, you know, you need to become an atheist or a skeptic or agnostic. We don't do that. We just say, here's a meeting you can come to talk, and nobody's going to judge you. If you want to talk about God, talk about God. We don't care.
Okay.
But no recruiting, no proselytizing. Yeah. We don't allow proselytizing in these groups.
We do have someone in the chat room saying, what are you willing to do as a donation incentive for us? So
here's the deal. I'm willing to match. I think I budgeted $50 for this, so I'll match up to $50. But here's the deal. I want people to give $1. I want people to donate $1, not a whole lot, but $1